Hey there, Sunshine State. It's election season again, and this year, Florida's got a real humdinger on the ballot. Amendment 3, which could fully legalize recreational marijuana. This isn't just about whether you like your brownies with a little extra kick. This is about big changes to Florida's laws, economy, and maybe even its vibe. Now, you might be thinking, John, why should I care about this amendment stuff? Sounds boring? Well, buckle up, Buttercup. Because understanding policy changes is like reading the fine print before you sign a contract with a mischievous demon. You might think you're getting a sweet deal on your soul, but you could end up with your firstborn cursed with an insatiable hunger for mayonnaise. This amendment, if passed, will have a ripple effect across the state, impacting everything from your wallet to your neighbor's weed-themed Christmas lights. So, put down that public sub for a minute, grab yourself a glass of sweet tea, and let's break this thing down like a confused tourist trying to navigate Disney World. We're going to dive deep into the arguments for and against Amendment 3, explore the potential economic and social impacts, and examine how this all fits into the grand tapestry of marijuana legislation in the US. By the end, you'll be armed with the knowledge you need to make an informed decision this November. Because remember, folks, democracy isn't a spectator sport. It's more like a contact sport played in a sauna while wearing a suit of armor made of your own apathy. And the only way to win is to show up and make your voice heard. So let's get informed and get ready to vote. All right, let's get down to brass tacks. What exactly is Florida Amendment 3 and why should you care? In a nutshell, this amendment wants to make recreational marijuana legal for adults aged 21 and older in the Sunshine State. That means, if it passes, lighting up a joint would be about as scandalous as sipping a mojito on South Beach. But hold your horses, Cheech. There's more to it than just sparking up in public. Amendment 3 lays out a framework for how this whole legal weed thing would work. It talks about regulating the industry, issuing licenses for businesses, and figuring out how much tax revenue this whole shebang could generate. Think of it like this. Right now, medical marijuana in Florida is like that friend who always has a doctor's note to get out of things. Amendment 3 wants to bring recreational marijuana to the party, but with some ground rules, like making sure it's not served in schools or used to hotbox the Epcot ball. Now, this isn't Florida's first rodeo with marijuana reform. Back in 2016, Florida voters approved Amendment 2, legalizing medical marijuana for patients with qualifying conditions. And let's just say that medical marijuana program has been about as smooth as a gator in a slip and slide. Amendment 3 aims to build on that foundation, but it sparked a whole new wave of debate. Some folks are all for it, seeing it as a chance to boost the economy, reform criminal justice, and let adults make their own choices. Others are waving their hands in the air like they just smelled something funky, worried about potential downsides like increased drug use, impaired driving, and Cheeto-dusted fingers everywhere. So, there you have it, the basic gist of Florida Amendment 3. Now let's dive into the nitty-gritty of who's for it, who's against it, and why this whole thing is more complicated than a game of 4D chess played on a roller coaster. All right, let's hear it for the folks, waving their legalize it banners and rocking tie-dye shirts that haven't seen the light of day since Woodstock. They're fired up about Amendment 3, and they've got a whole laundry list of reasons why. First off, they'll tell you it's all about freedom, baby. They argue that adults should have the right to choose what they put in their own bodies as long as it's not, bath salts or Tide Pods. They say the government should butt out of their personal lives, especially when it comes to a plant that's less harmful than alcohol, which, let's be honest, Florida knows a thing or two about. Then there's the economic argument. Supporters point to the potential for job creation, tax revenue, and a boost to Florida's already booming tourism industry. They envision a Green Rush 2.0, with dispensaries popping up like Starbucks and tourists flocking to the Sunshine State for a taste of that sweet, legal freedom. And let's not forget the social justice angle. Supporters argue that current marijuana laws disproportionately target minority communities, leading to higher arrest rates and perpetuating systemic racism. They see legalization as a way to right those wrongs and create a more equitable society. They also point to the potential benefits of marijuana for medical conditions, from chronic pain to PTSD. They argue that making it more accessible could help people find relief and improve their quality of life. So, there you have it. The pro-legalization camp comes armed with arguments about personal freedom, economic opportunity, social justice, and medical benefits. They truly believe that Amendment 3 is the right move for Florida and they're ready to fight for it. But don't think for a second that this is a done deal. The opponents of Amendment 3 are just as passionate, and they've got their own set of concerns that are hard to ignore. Now, let's turn our attention to the folks who are less than thrilled about the prospect of legal weed in Florida. They are the ones who still have their Dare shirts from the 80s and think 420 is just a time on the clock. They're not buying what the legalization camp is selling, and they've got a whole different story to tell. First and foremost, they're worried about the kids. They fear that easier access to marijuana will lead to increased use among teenagers, potentially harming their developing brains and turning them into slacker zombies who can't even form a coherent sentence, let alone operate a toaster oven. They also have concerns about public safety, particularly when it comes to driving under the influence. They envision Florida's roads turning into a real-life Mario Kart track, with drivers swerving all over the place, fueled by nothing but Doritos and questionable life choices. Then there's the whole gateway drug theory, which has been debunked more times than a flat earther's YouTube channel, but still pops up in these debates like a persistent weed in your grandma's prize-winning rose garden. They worry that marijuana use will lead to experimentation with harder drugs, turning Florida into a haven for drug-addled degenerates. And let's not forget the potential impact on communities. Opponents worry about increased crime, public intoxication, and a general decline in moral fiber. They envision a Florida where everyone's perpetually baked, stumbling around in a haze of Cheeto dust and reggae music. So there you have it. The anti-legalization camp is concerned about the potential negative consequences of Amendment 3, from the impact on youth to public safety to the overall moral fabric of society. They believe that legalization is a risky experiment that could have dire consequences for Florida. But the debate doesn't end there. There are also important economic and political implications to consider, which could have a major impact on Florida's future. Section $5.00, the economic impact of legal weed. Now, let's talk money, honey. Because when it comes to policy changes, the almighty dollar always has something to say. Legalizing recreational marijuana could be a major cash cow for Florida, or it could turn into a financial fiasco. Let's weigh the potential economic benefits and drawbacks. On the plus side, legalization could create a whole new industry in Florida, generating jobs, tax revenue, and investment opportunities. Think of it like a sunny version of Silicon Valley, but instead of tech bros in hoodies, you've got cannabis entrepreneurs in Hawaiian shirts. Dispensaries, cultivation facilities, testing labs, and ancillary businesses would sprout up like weeds, pun intended, creating a ripple effect throughout the economy. Tax revenue from marijuana sales could be used to fund education, infrastructure, or even give everyone in Florida a free year's supply of sunscreen. Legalization could also attract tourists from states where marijuana is still illegal, boosting the already thriving tourism industry. Imagine a world where Disney World offers a special High Times package, complete with a Munchies buffet and a ride on the It's a Small World ride that's even more trippy than usual. But hold on a minute, there's another side to this coin. Opponents argue that the economic benefits of legalization are overblown and that the costs could outweigh the gains. They point to the potential for increased healthcare costs associated with marijuana use, as well as the costs of regulating and enforcing a new industry. They also worry about the impact on other industries such as alcohol and pharmaceuticals, which could see a decline in sales as people switch to marijuana. And let's not forget the potential for black market sales to continue as illegal operators undercut legal businesses with lower prices and a distinct lack of paperwork. So, the economic impact of legalizing marijuana in Florida is a complex issue with no easy answers. It could be a boon for the state's coffers, or it could create a whole new set of financial headaches. Only time will tell what the true cost of legalization will be. But the economic impact is just one piece of the puzzle. We also need to consider the political ramifications of Amendment 3, which could have far-reaching consequences for Florida's political landscape. Section 6 politics in the haze, how Amendment 3 could reshape Florida. Hold on to your hats, folks, because things are about to get political. Amendment 3 isn't just about marijuana, it's about power, ideology, and the future of Florida's political landscape. Let's unpack how this little plant is causing such a big stir in the halls of power. First off, Amendment 3 has become a major wedge issue, dividing voters along party lines and igniting passionate debates on both sides. It's like the political equivalent of throwing a lit match into a fireworks factory and everyone's scrambling for cover. Republicans, generally seen as more conservative on drug policy, are divided on the issue. Some, particularly those representing more rural and conservative areas, remain firmly opposed to legalization, citing concerns about public safety and moral decay. They see this as a battle for the soul of Florida, and they're not backing down. Others, however, recognize the potential economic benefits of legalization and the changing attitudes towards marijuana, particularly among younger voters. They're walking a tightrope, trying to appeal to their base while also acknowledging the shifting sands of public opinion. Democrats, on the other hand, are largely in favor of legalization, seeing it as a matter of social justice, personal freedom, and economic opportunity. They're hoping to mobilize their base, particularly young and minority voters, to turn out in droves and make Amendment 3 a reality. The outcome of the vote could have significant implications for future elections, influencing voter turnout, campaign strategies, and the balance of power in the state legislature. It could also impact Florida's role in national politics, potentially pushing the state to the forefront of the national debate on marijuana legalization. So, buckle up, because Amendment 3 is more than just a referendum on marijuana. It's a political battleground with high stakes and potentially game-changing consequences for Florida's future. But let's not forget that Florida isn't the first state to grapple with these issues. Let's take a look at how other states have handled marijuana legalization and what lessons Florida can learn from their experiences. Section 7, from medical marijuana to full legalization, a look at Florida's past. Now, let's take a trip down memory lane, shall we? Florida's dance with marijuana legalization didn't just start with Amendment 3. It's been a long and winding road with twists, turns, and enough drama to make a telenovela blush. Back in the Dark Ages, also known as the 20th century, Florida, like most states, had some pretty harsh marijuana laws. Possession of even small amounts could land you in jail, and cultivation was a surefire way to earn yourself a one-way ticket to the slammer. But as the years went by, attitudes towards marijuana began to shift, even in the Sunshine State. Medical marijuana gained traction, with advocates highlighting its potential to alleviate suffering from chronic pain, seizures, and other debilitating conditions. In 2014, Florida voters narrowly rejected Amendment 2, which would have legalized medical marijuana. But the fight wasn't over. 2 years later, a revised version of Amendment 2 passed with overwhelming support, ushering in a new era for marijuana policy in Florida. The implementation of the medical marijuana program, however, has been anything but smooth sailing. Legal challenges, bureaucratic hurdles, and political infighting have plagued the program, creating confusion and frustration for patients and businesses alike. Despite these challenges, the medical marijuana industry in Florida has blossomed, with dispensaries popping up across the state and thousands of patients finding relief through cannabis. This success has fueled the push for full legalization, with advocates arguing that it's time to treat marijuana like alcohol and regulate it accordingly. So, as Florida grapples with Amendment 3, it's important to remember the lessons learned from the medical marijuana experience. The road to legalization is rarely smooth, and it requires careful planning, thoughtful regulation, and a commitment to addressing unintended consequences. But Florida isn't alone in this journey. Let's zoom out and see how other states have navigated the choppy waters of marijuana legalization. Section 8. Comparing cannabis policies Florida in the national context. All right, let's take a step back and see how Florida's marijuana legalization saga compares to the rest of the country. It's like comparing notes in class, but instead of algebra equations, we're talking about weed laws and their impact. First off, it's important to remember that the United States is a patchwork quilt of marijuana laws, with each state free to set its own policies. It's enough to make your head spin faster than a carousel at a county fair. Some states, like California and Colorado, have gone full-on green, legalizing recreational marijuana and creating booming cannabis industries. They're like the cool kids in school who are always experimenting and pushing the boundaries. Others, like Texas and Alabama, still cling to prohibition with harsh penalties for possession and use. They're like the strict principal who confiscates your Game Boy Color for no reason. And then there's the vast middle ground, with states like Florida trying to find a happy medium between legalization and prohibition. They're like the kids who bring their textbooks to parties, just in case. Each state's experience with marijuana legalization has been unique, with its own set of challenges and successes. Some states have struggled with issues like black market sales, impaired driving and youth access, while others have seen economic benefits, criminal justice reform, and improved public health outcomes. Florida can learn from these experiences, both good and bad, as it considers Amendment 3. By studying the successes and failures of other states, Florida can craft a legalization framework that works best for its unique circumstances. So as Florida stands at a crossroads on marijuana policy, it can look to other states for guidance, but ultimately it must chart its own course. Section 9, the future is green, potential outcomes and long-term impacts. All right, let's grab our crystal balls and peer into the hazy future of Florida post-Amendment 3. What will the Sunshine State look like if voters decide to embrace legal weed? Will it be a paradise of chill vibes and economic prosperity? Or will it descend into a chaotic scene straight out of a Cheech and Chong movie? If Amendment 3 passes, get ready for a whole lot of change, my friends. The legal cannabis industry will explode, with dispensaries popping up faster than Starbucks in a strip mall. We'll see a surge in jobs, tax revenue, and entrepreneurs eager to cash in on the green rush. Florida's tourism industry might get a nice little boost too. Imagine billboards on I-95 proclaiming "Welcome to Florida," where the weed is legal and the alligators wear Hawaiian shirts. Tourists might flock to the Sunshine State for a taste of that sweet legal freedom and a chance to visit the world's first Disney World with a designated smoking section. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Legalization could also bring its share of challenges. Public health officials will be working overtime to educate the public about responsible marijuana use, especially when it comes to driving under the influence. Law enforcement will need to adapt to a new set of regulations, and the black market will likely stick around, trying to undercut legal businesses. The social landscape of Florida could also shift. Will we see an increase in public consumption, like that time your weird uncle got high and tried to have a philosophical conversation with a palm tree? Will marijuana become as ubiquitous as public subs and flip-flops? Only time will tell. One thing's for sure, legalizing marijuana in Florida would be a monumental change with far-reaching consequences. It's a decision that shouldn't be taken lightly, and voters have a lot to consider before casting their ballots. But why exactly does this all matter? Why should you, the average Floridian, care about a bunch of politicians arguing about a plant? Section 10. Your vote, your voice. Why Amendment 3 matters. All right, folks, we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the ins and outs of Florida Amendment 3, the arguments for and against legalization, the potential economic and social impacts, and the historical context of marijuana policy in Florida and beyond. But now it's time to cut to the chase. Why should you, the average hard-working Floridian, care about this whole marijuana legalization thing? Why should you even bother to vote on Amendment 3? Well, here's the thing. This isn't just about weed. It's about having a say in the future of your state. It's about deciding what kind of Florida you want to live in. Do you want a Florida where adults have the freedom to make their own choices about marijuana without fear of arrest or prosecution? Do you want a Florida that benefits from the economic opportunities of a legal cannabis industry, creating jobs and generating tax revenue? Or do you want a Florida that maintains the status quo, with marijuana remaining illegal and the black market continuing to thrive? Do you want a Florida where people continue to be arrested and incarcerated for a substance that is legal in many other states? These are not easy questions, and there are valid arguments on both sides. But that's exactly why your vote matters. Every vote counts, and your voice deserves to be heard. Amendment 3 is a chance for you to make your voice heard on an issue that will have a profound impact on Florida's future. It's a chance to shape the Sunshine State into a place that reflects your values and priorities. So please don't sit this one out. Get informed, make up your mind, and vote on Amendment 3. The future of Florida is in your hands.